Hi, I'm Kelly Cervantes, and this is Seizing Life, a bi-weekly podcast produced by CURE Epilepsy. Today, I'm excited to welcome longtime friends of CURE Epilepsy, Patty and Patrick Horan. As a captain in the U.S. Army, Pat Horan was serving in Iraq in 2007 when he suffered a devastating traumatic brain injury that ultimately led to the development of post-traumatic epilepsy, or PTE. The onset of epilepsy significantly impacted Patrick's healing process and made an already difficult road to recovery much more challenging for Pat and Patty. They are here today to share their story and experiences and to bring attention to the issue of TBI and PTE among our veterans. Pat, Patty, thank you so much for joining us today on Seizing Life. I'm just so thrilled to have you on and to learn more about your journey. So I guess I'd love to take it from the beginning of your injury. You can tell us more about when, where, how it occurred, and sort of your mental state at that time.
I've been in the Army for almost 10 years. And in 2007, that's when I'd been in Iraq for a year. And then one night, we were going at night to do a recon, so make sure the bad guys weren't setting IEDs for the next day. Um, So it was about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I went with one of my soldiers, and we're going to go downstairs to get some water and Gatorade and all the stuff and bring it back upstairs. And when we were about to go downstairs, um, across the street, I guess, I'm not sure why, but I got two Iraqis shot at us. And my soldier, he jumped down, and it was too late for me, and I got a shot right through my night vision that I was wearing, and so it exploded. And then from there, it all just went into
Helmet.
my helmet, yeah, or my brain also. And I
Yeah, there's a small flap in the helmet, so the bullet actually snuck inside the helmet.
and I passed out. I don't remember any of that. It was about 2 months, but one of my soldiers, he was trying to call me on the radio, and then he ran back upstairs. And two of my soldiers had come over to see what I was doing, and my soldier, he took off my helmet, and just saw that like half of my brain was just gone. It was like destroyed. So
yeah, they couldn't tell where the injury was, so they took off the helmet, which probably wasn't the best idea. And half his skull came off with it.
Yeah. So they it was incredible. We went from there. It was about 15 minutes away. We went to Baghdad, and then less than 10 minutes later, I was in a helicopter going to Balad, and I landed there like 45 minutes later, and they did the surgery right away. Took off 40% of my skull, and I was there for almost 8 or 9 hours, I think, and then I left.
Yeah, Pat was really lucky too, because that night he was the only one injured, and they had a clear road to get to the local field hospital. So you hear about the golden hour, which he did get medical within an hour. So he was very lucky that night.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a miracle that you're talking with us today. I mean, I can't even imagine, nor do I want to. So you're in the hospital and they perform surgery or whatever needs to happen. Did anyone at this point, you clearly have a traumatic brain injury, did anyone mention post-traumatic epilepsy to you at this point?
When I when I got shot to Welland, I was in Bethesda, Maryland. It only took 36 hours, and they had told the one of the doctors like first second day that yeah, you need to start taking the Keppra for my medicine. So
Well, yeah, I arrived at the Naval Hospital in Bethesda. What You arrived there late Sunday night. I took a red eye from Seattle, Washington, and arrived in DC Monday morning first thing, and was escorted to the hospital and got like a medical briefing right away. So this is Pat's skull, just to show you a model how much is missing of the skull. And one of the first things they did in the briefing is give me the list of all the horrible things that could go wrong in the first 3 weeks that would end his life. So he was in the ICU. His head was so swollen it looked normal, even though they had taken off probably 40% of the skull, or it had been fractured because of the bullet wound. So one of the things on the list of probably 30 things that could go wrong is like infection, swelling, unable to maintain like the pressure on the brain. One big thing was seizure. So they did say if Pat has a seizure within the first 3 weeks, that he would most likely pass away. So that was my first introduction to epilepsy.
And did they say anything to you about what happens if he has a seizure after 3 weeks, or to be on the lookout for that?
No. So, that really stuck in my mind. And he did not have a seizure. And prophylactically, they gave him Keppra in the ICU for the first couple of weeks. So, thankfully, at that point, no epilepsy occurred.
Hi, this is Brandon from CURE Epilepsy. Traumatic brain injury, or TBI, accounts for 20% of symptomatic epilepsy in the general population. CURE Epilepsy, in partnership with the Department of Defense, has implemented a research program focusing on post-traumatic epilepsy resulting from a traumatic brain injury. Go to cureepilepsy.org to learn what CURE Epilepsy is doing to fund research in the prevention and treatment of post-traumatic epilepsy. Now back to Seizing Life.
How long in this journey are when you sort of come to the realization of your circumstances? And I guess it would also be helpful to know, how you're doing today and sort of how far you've come from this injury and the work that's gone into that.
it took almost maybe 6 weeks when I sort of started coming out, and I went after 6 weeks. Then I went to RIC in Chicago, and I was wearing a helmet
for rehabilitation, right?
Yeah. And I don't know. I thought I was just getting back to normal, and they put me back together, and I go back to the Army. Like, I really didn't understand. And
yeah, they wait 6 months to do like a prosthetic surgery just to make sure everything's all healed up. So it's like 6 months with open, exposed brain. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
I can't. It was wild to even think about. It's just.
It is. And that we can live through something like this, actually. It's pretty amazing, like what the human body can heal. Yeah, so we were in Chicago. He did a lot of intense rehab. And they did give me this really great book on brain injury recovery. And it had all sorts of things from like the coma scale, like how they emerge out of a coma, and cognition levels. And it was a great book. And there was a section on epilepsy. No one really spoke to me much about it in Chicago, just gave me the book. And I remember seeing the page on it and thinking that it was a possibility. But I just felt like, maybe that's not going to happen to us.
But it did, unfortunately.
And it did.
And can you tell us what happened when that first seizure occurred?
I got lucky because I don't know anything to me happened. But Patty said she woke up around like 2:00 in the morning, and just all of a sudden I was having like a grandma seizure, and Patty had no idea what a grandma seizure was.
No.
So
it was probably the scariest moment of my entire life, honestly. I thought he was dying. It was 4.5 months into recovery, and I thought, what in the world? He came back a lot, alive from this gunshot wound. We've worked really hard, and now he's going to die tonight.
So she ran outside, or not, in the other room, looked for a nurse, and it took a couple minutes to find a nurse. And then the nurse went with Patty to my room, and the nurse was like, "Oh, he'll be okay. He'll be okay. He'll stop. He's just having a seizure."
Yeah, she identified it as kind of normal for the brain injury that he had, but it was a full body, very violent, convulsive seizure.
Yeah, it's hard to reconcile such involuntary, violent body activity with normal, even given the extent of the injury. Now, when the seizure occurred, were you still taking Keppra at that time?
No, we're not sure where or when, but when I went from Bethesda to Chicago, I just, whatever reason, I wasn't taking any epilepsy medicine. So
yeah, the medication was removed from his regimen somewhere along the way, and in the early stages, I wasn't as honed in on the epilepsy and the seizure because there were so many things going wrong and so many things to pay attention to. So I think at some point they took him off just to see how the brain did, but that was probably not the best move.
There's really no way to know, and that's the crazy thing about epilepsy and seizures, is that it's a crapshoot. This particular disease, to put it slightly crassly.
No, it really is. But at least, like, when it did surface, he was in bed. We were in a hospital. We could get medical quickly. It was pretty amazing that night too, because it stopped and the nurse went away. And then 10 minutes later, it started again. So it was this rolling seizure situation, which was extremely dangerous. They called the paramedics from Northwestern, throw him on a gurney. We're running at like 2 a.m. through all these hallways because there's like these secret passageways from RIC to Northwestern. So they had to get him on a Dilantin drip like as soon as possible because it could cause more brain damage. So it was an exciting evening, to say the least. But he did okay. But all the rehab that we'd worked on for months was just gone in like a blink.
Yeah, that was going to be my very next question, is just how did the appearance of seizures impact Pat's recovery?
It was hard. I mean, most of his seizures were in the first couple of years, and that's when we were working the hardest and the brain was putting itself back together. He was making the most gains, but then we'd get these like horrible grand mals, and we were doing all sorts of different medication regimens trying to figure this out. So it really got in the way of recovery. And it was very deflating, many times.
Pat, are your seizures currently under control with medication, or are you still experiencing seizures?
Right now, I've been lucky. I haven't had a seizure in 6 or 7 years. So
that is amazing. Congratulations!
It is amazing.
What was the journey like to get to this stage of seizure freedom?
Well, it was kind of interesting. I was taking, I don't know how they did it that first year, but they kept trying to find these different medicine. But then what they kept doing was keep taking Keppra. So then the Keppra would go higher, but they put something else with Keppra, and that's what it still wasn't working for me. So like every month I'd have a seizure,
and then I had like 7 different medications, I think, over the course of 2 years.
No, I had about 15 first 2.
Well, seizures, but medications. You tried 7 or many different combinations.
And so we had gone to University of Michigan for aphasia, and I had a seizure there, and we were in the hospital, and I was taking Keppra, and I can't remember the other one that I was taking.
It was Carbitrol.
Yeah. And and Patty was just like, one of the doctors was out there in the hospital, and she was just like, he's like, my husband's not leaving until he takes the Depakote again, because I took it way back when I was in RIC. So
Yeah.
Patty, like, I think I sat in the hospital for like 10 hours or something waiting, because Patty would not let me leave until I started taking Depakote
Yeah,
again.
Depakote seemed to be our magic bullet, but a lot of the physical medicine doctors through rehab didn't like it because they felt it stunted the rehab and it stunted the brain from recovering. But that was what worked. So at the end of the day, we just went back to it because it seemed like also all of the seizures were stunting the rehab more than Depakote. So it became the lesser of two evils.
I call it the epilepsy tightrope, where it is this balance between finding the right medication to control the seizures, but also still find some quality of life, still be able to make progress. But, and it's such a tricky thing. And I think it's such a difficult thing to get people to understand. They hear about these epilepsy medications and they think that they are cures and they are treatments. But it sounds like from your experience, and I'd love to hear you talk more about this. But sometimes the side effects from these meds can be worse than the seizures themselves.
Well, the one that I had and I was taking it for 10 years was Keppra, and that is, for me, I guess it's just an angry medicine. And I was taking every morning. I take how do I say it, 3,000 milligrams,
which is the top dose. So he was taking Keppra and Depakote.
So finally, about almost 2 years ago, because they had a really good doctor in Walter Reed, and he was like, "You need to get rid of Keppra."
It's associated with rage, irritability, mood issues, which Pat was experiencing all of these. He was very angry. We couldn't get him to participate in much anymore because of his level of irritability. So he just kind of stopped participating in life. He was angry at everyone. So we finally decided, even just 2 years ago, to do this huge med change, which was scary. He had to be hospitalized in a monitoring unit for 5 days? And he was like tethered to an EEG. So it felt like, here we go, we're sick again. We're not well. And then we even did he did 2 weeks on the brain injury ward there too, to make sure there wasn't something else going on other than the Keppra, but it ended up being the medication. So we got rid of it without any issues, which was really huge. So that was a win, but it was a lot. It's a lot to change meds too.
Yeah. These are serious drugs.
Yeah, you have to be hospitalized and give up time in your life. And it's not just like that week. It's like a 3-month window that possibly you're going to have a seizure. So he can't be alone. We have to we have to be very safe in the things that we do. He can't go swimming. He can't do a lot of activities. So, yeah.
I'd love for you to tell me about the Stroke Comeback Center and the podcast called The Slow Road to Better.
Well, I've been going to the Stroke Comeback Center. It's more than 8 years I've been going there, and they've really been just gotten better reading and writing and talking, and so they started 3 years ago. They decided, hey, well, let's just have a podcast, and we don't, we're not big time doctors or, speech, we know everything. It's like the one lady's from speech, and she kind of just was like, all right, guys, let's get on there and just start saying whatever you want to talk about and different stories. And it was pretty fun. So it's been pretty good,
So where is the center located and what are its goals?
It's it's called Vienna, Virginia. So that's 20 minutes to DC.
It's a nice group of people that had stroke or brain injury, and there's definitely people that suffer from epilepsy there. And it's just a place where they can come together and talk about how life is different, after injury or disease. And Pat really enjoys it. And it runs the gamut. They have people as young as in their 20s that have motorcycle accidents or, Army or military, or people that are older and had stroke. So.
And what is life like for both of you now?
Well, I guess now we were just talking about, it's interesting. We just lost our doctor, and we have this new team now over at Walter Reed, and they have such a different way of treating like epilepsy. So because of COVID, we're not doing any changes with that, but our goal is monotherapy eventually. So we would he's on Briviac instead of Keppra. So that's coming up, I hope, in the next year, but we're going to wait until hopefully there's a vaccine or something, because we don't want to put Pat in jeopardy. There's not a whole lot to do, COVID. It's kind of taken away a lot of the recreational activities, and he's doing stroke comeback still virtually. There's a program through Wounded Warrior Project that's giving him a mentor, so they might do some things virtually. But everything, we're kind of home. Yeah.
Patty, I know that you personally have made such an impact with CURE Epilepsy's DOD panel. I'd love to hear about your experience with the panel and helping us with the grant.
Sure. Being on the panel is it's really exciting, and it's a great honor for me to be participating. And post-traumatic epilepsy, there is no cure right now. And I think it's a great place to spend research dollars, because there's an understanding of why the service members have the epilepsy. And there is a place in that from onset of injury to epileptogenesis, to the process where it could possibly be stopped. And that's where we focus a lot of the science in the panel on from injury point to actual first onset of seizure. For Pat, it was 4 months there. And for a lot of service members, there is this window of recovery, and then the seizure happens. And that's our focus, and it's exciting, all the science and research that's coming up. And there's a lot of collaboration between scientists and among labs, because CURE and DOD requires it. So I feel like that the science is being pushed forward a lot faster than in some of the other programs. And we're going to reconvene again early in the new year, and I'm really excited about what we're going to learn and the new research that comes forward.
I think that is such a fascinating point that you make, that, the idea of preventing epilepsy from ever occurring. I think so much we focus on curing it after it's already happened. But if you have these service members where that they are high risk in developing this because they've had the TBI, if that window, and there are preventative measures that we can take so that the epilepsy never occurs. That way they never have these setbacks in therapy, and they can lead these more full lives. It's encouraging to think that, we could really make a huge, huge impact in these service members' lives, and anyone who suffers a TBI, be it, from a car accident or some other fall. So I just, you are pushing science forward, and I know the CURE Epilepsy family is just so grateful for your contributions. Thank you both so much for sharing your journey and your story. I'm just, again, so grateful for your service to our country, but also to this community. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us on today.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat and Patty, for sharing your story and providing a personal perspective on the impacts of TBI and PTE. While research has established a correlation between TBI and PTE, we still don't fully understand the mechanisms that lead to the development of epilepsy. That's why CURE Epilepsy has partnered with the Department of Defense to implement a research program focusing on PTE as a result of TBI. By establishing a multi-center, multi-investigator research team to study PTE in a laboratory setting, we will lay the groundwork for the creation of new therapies to prevent the development of PTE. If you'd like to support Cure Epilepsy in its efforts to prevent post-traumatic epilepsy, please visit cureepilepsy.org/donate. Your support and generosity are greatly appreciated. Thank you.